All right, welcome to Team Audio Presents something about
success in games with video, sound effects, composition, all the sound things.
Counting, that would be dope.
We just did it. We're good.
Oh yeah.
We are actually more.
We're very professional.
Team Audio presents success in game audio, video, and music.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously, thank you everybody for coming out here and listening to us gab. We really want this to be somewhat of informal. If you have questions, feel free to come and ask us questions. We're here to divulge our knowledge to you as well as we can. Obviously not me, because I don't know English very well, but I'm going to try to moderate these professionals onto the side of me. So let's introduce yourself.
Why don't you introduce him, and then we can each introduce someone else. Let me take this conversation. I come
That
late.
is the executive producer, obviously, trying to produce me right now.
Sorry.
But I'm going to go with my first instinct and let them say what he wants.
Oh, jeez. Well, that kind of makes it harder. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Lorenz, sound designer. I'm mostly just doing sound design stuff. I leave the composition to the composers, who are fantastic. I don't know. I've been in the industry for 8 years, about. It's been great. It's a lovely time.
What have you worked on?
Oh, okay.
I would know.
Yeah, let's see here. So helped out on games like The Witness, Destiny 2. I did like a cinematic or two in Horizon Zero Dawn, you know. Wasn't much. A couple like little multiplayer games which are really fun. Indie game called Moon Dawn, which was awesome to work on. Love indie games. And currently.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was like, is there any?
Yeah, because it's announced.
Yeah. Currently working on a game called Judas, which is Ken Levine's like newest game, the guy who created like BioShock, and it's been real fun. It's a great time.
What is the most obscure thing you've worked on?
The most obscure thing I've worked on. The most obscure.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, this is wild.
Oh yeah, I guess that would be the indie game that I worked on. It's called Moon Dawn. And it's a Swiss horror game. So the developer is like from Switzerland, and all the voice acting is acted in a language called Romansh, which is a tiny dialect in like the mountains of Switzerland that like only a handful of people actually like know. And so they found like basically any actor or actress in Switzerland who knew that language and like did it. And it was a good project. It was all hand pencil drawings. That's how they like shaded everything. Every asset was just sketches, which was gorgeous.
And what do you have for breakfast?
I had it was delicious. I had an almond croissant. Really good.
Nice.
Yeah, Little Tart Bakery.
I want to produce
in the
this
area.
a little
Little Tart's great.
Let's go to the. Thank you, Eric.
I swear I'll talk about audio later.
Laura.
My turn.
Let's do this.
Hi, I'm Laura Taylor. I have my own company called Sound by Laura. I also contract out for Team Audio. I've been doing audio for 33 years in January, and games for the last 10 of that. The things I've worked on that you've heard about, Halo Infinite. Did some work for Chris on Brawlhalla. About 200 slot machines that you've never heard of.
But they sound great.
But they sound fantastic. If you go to some gas stations in North Georgia or southern Tennessee, it's called Bust a Pig.
Wow. It's really great.
I sang.
Bust.
By the way,
Thank God for vocal synth, man.
if you're
There's a
from
reason
Georgia,
I write instrumentals. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're from Georgia, the casino industry is huge here, like the Class 2 bingo games, so there's a ton of developers in the sound and music. Just saying, I've done probably 200 or 300 of those things too, so it's a lot of money. All right.
Yeah.
Continue, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, breakfast, I had protein oatmeal.
Excellent.
Oatmeal. Yeah, that's it.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Rickwood. I am the music director for Team Audio and a music composer. I've been in the industry since 1999. I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of games like Smite, Paladins, Battle Royale. I'm currently working on Brawlhalla as well as Judas. I've done everything from composing to audio directing to programming. I've made a game. I've kind of get bored super quick, so I like to get my hands in a lot of things. And hopefully you're that way too. You're curious about all the different disciplines in game development. That's kind of me in a nutshell.
And breakfast?
Breakfast, I had oatmeal
Anything on it?
with stuff on it.
What's-
Like peanut butter. Peanut butter, honey, cinnamon, chia seeds, flaxseed, bananas. Next question.
I'm gonna just dump mine out of a package in a bowl and have water and stuff in the microwave.
Mine's microwavable,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of stuff. I have heart problems.
He has heart problems
Kat.
because of me. I'm Kat. I am the I'm an audio director at Team Audio as well as the executive producer. I do things. I call myself the janitor of Team Audio because I clean up after people, and there's a lot of things to clean up in game audio. I've been in the industry for, math is not my strong suit, 14 years now. I've worked on games like Borderlands, the first one. Worked on a couple Star Wars games, things that you've never heard of or care about. I also recently worked on Pentiment with Obsidian last year, and thank you. Thank you. And I'm currently working with Stoic, and I'm their audio director for Townborn. I had the most fantastic Eggs Benedict, and it was incredible. I'm not from here, I'm from Texas, and that was delicious.
I like that you
You
got
really
more
just asked the
excited.
question so that you could talk
Like
about your
everyone should
records.
know. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
She's like, I worked on Pentiment. Like, oh, not only did you work on Pentiment, you were like the main audio person. But let's get that out of the way. Let me tell you about the Eggs Benedict.
It was phenomenal.
Come on.
Like, I'm quite pleased with my stuff.
What's
Okay,
the
cool.
most obscure game you worked on?
I worked on a game called Awesome Eats. It was for Whole Foods, and it was a game about moving vegetables into like bins. And they had me as the composer, and they're like, we need music that sounds like you're in a kitchen. And I'm like, girl, I got you. And I made like the weirdest music for it. It was so cute. It was really cute. No one played it though, but I was very proud. Yeah, we're doing it, guys.
Everything I work on is obscure and unknown and unpopular.
You do great things.
I did What's Cooking Jamie Oliver for the DS.
Really? I always wanted to work on a DS game.
No, you don't. It's hard.
No, I mean I worked on like 3DS, and that was a hot mess. But I really wanted to work on DS stuff because I liked the aesthetics and music for most of those.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's our talk. Any
Good
questions?
Hold on. I feel like I've got a good conversational topic.
I do have prepared questions.
No,
I don't
no.
know
Okay,
why I
don't
don't
do that. I was just trying to think of
No,
something.
I got this. Eric Lorenz.
Oh,
Why did you decide to get in the game industry despite all the other career choices you could have gone down?
that's a good one. I mean, okay, so I went to college down at SCAD in Savannah, majored in sound design, and the program there, I mean, we're already like hyper specific, like someone who's like wanting to do sound design and stuff, but it's like mostly geared towards film. And while I was there, I learned, I think it was really through the indie game Limbo, was the first time I was ever like, oh, like sound design in video games can be so cool. Like all the little details and like everything, I was like super inspired by it. So then I started hanging out with the video game developer nerds, and I was like, I like y'all way better than the film nerds. There's nothing wrong with film nerds, it's just they're more fun at parties, the video game kids. And then just like kept wanting to go down that, and then fell in love with like interactive systems as opposed to like just linear media, and like getting into like nitty gritty for like a little bit of programming. I'm a terrible programmer, don't ever get me to program, but just like thinking outside the box in various ways. Like I think I had an analogy once, like forever ago, that like really stuck with me. That was like for like linear media and like films, like you're composing a full thing. Like it starts, here's the middle, here's everything, here's the end, and like perfect. Like you gotta like perfect it to the best you can. But doing things for video games is like creating an instrument instead that you hand to someone, and then you kind of just say like, go on, do whatever, and it's gonna sound gorgeous. Like, and that's just, it's such an interesting like philosophy for
generative.
Yeah, or just like an art medium in general. It's like it's hands off. Like you set everything up and then you give it to someone else, and you're gonna be like, well, it's always gonna sound good. So have fun.
Laura, what's one skill you think everybody should have in the audio business that maybe they don't have?
Punctuality.
Oh, wow. Calling people out. Perfect time.
So set me up. All right, and also, the ability and the desire to work on multiple DAWs. It seems to me in my travels around the internet that some people treat DAWs like sports teams. This is my DAW, and it rocks, and everybody else that uses Pro Tools sucks. And in my career, I've used 9 DAWs, 7 DAWs, and I don't care which one it is. You know, you guys hired me for Judas because I use Pro Tools. You know, because you needed someone who used Pro Tools. If somebody needed me to use Audition, I would. If somebody needed me to use Reaper, I would. It's just a matter of figuring out the muscle memory to make it go.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to understand the basic concepts of digital and analog audio and signal flow so that if needed you can move between DAWs. It's certainly fine to have a favorite. Pro Tools is my favorite. I'm proud of it, even though I have to pay them $200 a year. I can move to another one if I have to. So you can specialize, but I think it's important to also be willing and able to move to another one if necessary.
Nice.
Friend.
Yes. Introduce yourself. Social
And your
Security.
breakfast. I want to know.
Hey, man, Matt Foster, Social Security 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Wow, 9.
And 9, sorry. And no, so I guess kind of 2 questions, because one comment that you had, breakfast? I don't eat breakfast. It's called intermittent fasting.
Oh, okay.
So that's what it is.
Nice. Yes.
But yeah. But anyway, so I was curious about your comment. One, the quote-unquote hot mess. Why the 3DS was a hot mess to design for. I'm curious why. And then I guess the second question I have is, what's something, and one person can answer or each, you know, what's something as a sound designer that maybe the general public doesn't realize that's like takes a lot of time, or something that is unique to it that maybe most people wouldn't realize. So I'm curious about that.
Well, I'm sorry about your breakfast, but I'm happy for you at the same time. For the 3DS, when I worked on it, I worked on a Thor game after the movie. And when I was working on it, we actually were supposed to be close to a launch title, but didn't quite make it. So we actually had the dev kit pretty much naked. So it was an open dev kit where you see all the bits and bobs. And working on smaller consoles is wild because you have such a small limitation on space. So where we get away with things on larger consoles or PC, we really had to trim down a huge majority of the content in the game and then also be aware of how many voices we have playing. And the Thor game was basically a blood hell kind of thing, where you have these blood gates and you're always fighting a whole bunch of people. And it's like, well, how do you make it still sound really exciting and dangerous, but also be really aware of how many sounds you could have playing without suddenly hitting like it to like 3 FPS, which was actually a problem we were having. And so at the time we were also using Ys, and so the overhead of Ys and how much space that took up was wild. And we had to go in, really trim down all of our sounds, including some of the waves, including like a lot of like the heads and tails to make sure there wasn't a lot of silence, and cut down on variations and a lot of things. So smaller consoles are wild because then you really have to narrow down what's the most important thing here. So it's the sum of its parts rather than what actually makes it sound cool. So as a sound designer, it's difficult to narrow down, like, you know, what actually benefits the player versus what actually sounds exciting.
What was the second part of it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I worked.
No.
I
was trying to remember.
Yeah, the second part was just, what's something that is challenging or unique that you don't think the general public realizes about design and audio design that you think would be interesting for us to know?
I actually have a good answer for that, and it's not just the general public, it's developers in general. Audio is the one discipline that everything originates outside of the engine. So it's like, okay, I want to record, we need this voice line. It's okay, that starts from getting an actor, talking into a mic, then putting it into the DAW, doing the processing, then putting it into the engine, and then hooking it up. So it's so many more steps just to get one little asset in the game than any other discipline.
Yeah, I also say that like audio is like usually the smallest team on the development that can shift a mood. Like just, they can take anything. Like they can be like, oh, so we've been developing this like war game for like 7 years, and then like I come in and I'm like Looney Tunes music. Like just with a click of a button. Like there's so much like responsibility with like being such a small team and like trying to like work with everyone else to like really nail down everyone's vision, really. Like it's like not just your own. It's like, yeah, like the collective. I mean, if you have like a creative director, that helps. And if no one's like too dogmatic about audio and whatever, then it is yours.
I would say for me, one thing that people forget is for audio, we have to test the game as it is. And a lot of developers will turn off audio, or they'll use cheats to get to a certain part, or they only test like their animation by itself. But in order for us to test our sounds, we need to play like an actual chunk of a level. So we don't go in turning off the lights or like animations or whatever.
Yeah,
That's the reason.
You're a problem.
Yeah, doing QA for audio is like really hard. Usually what you have to do, so like if anyone's like working on audio and they have like QA people, get at least one person that you know has like a decent ear to kind of be like, all right, you and I are gonna be buddy because like people could play the game and be like, oh, that sounded like a bug, but you could be like, no, that's as designed, or like, well, the music got like a little quiet here, and you're like, no, that's a bug, that is a bug.
I got one more question, I guess, since there's no one else. I'm just curious as well.
Challenge it.
So I have like some definitely favorite composers, like as far as like rare, like especially like I think it was Grant Kirkhope and like David Wise, like that did like the Donkey Kong Country, like Banjo-Kazooie, stuff like that. And then to me also like Yoko Shimomura is like absolutely excellent. Is there anyone that you like in the industry, could you be yourself, that you like really look up to and idolize, just be curious from here, that you kind of like have as the gold standard?
Chris Rickwood. I don't know. I'm so. I don't have one.
It's interesting because the people in the industry are my friends, so it's hard to idolize them, But I know who I get inspiration from all of them. Like you said, Austin Leonard, we work with him. He's an excellent composer. Jimmy Soul, Skyrim soundtrack is one of my favorites. And obviously, from the film world, John Williams is why I got into music probably in the first place. Danny Elfman. Video games, like, one of my favorites was recently was the Death's Door soundtrack, and that was done by the whole game was done by 2 people, and it was like the programmer that did the music, and it's excellent. Not just like writing, but the production of it, I was blown away. Like, this is insane that 2 people made this game. So I love it all. I just try to enjoy it all. Thank you. Look at this.
Oh, yeah, you really said
Did it.
something. Wait, Kat, do you have any composers?
I just wanted to
Laura,
say-
you got any composers?
Yeah.
I do not, actually.
I know, it's really hard.
It is,
It's
especially
like-
with slot game music, name one slot
I
slot game music
actually,
composer, that's the
Put 'em all.
impress. Yeah, and that's it.
I actually have a question for you,
Keep standing
Laura.
here.
Okay, bring it.
Okay.
Is it about my lunch?
No, we'll get to that later. But
Okay.
actually, slot machine sound design, I think is super important because you're hitting the reward aspect really quickly and trying to give the immediate emotion of like, is this good, is this bad? I think slots are so interesting in that regard. What have you learned from your sound design in slot machines that you find very important for new coming sound designers?
Good question, Kat.
I got you.
It's not just sound. We're not just making blings and beeps and trying to be louder than the next cabinet next to us. We're trying to communicate a message, and so when I'm working on a sound or set of sounds, I have to decide what am I trying to communicate to the player, and what restraints do I have? What else is going on while this is happening? Not just within the game itself, but within the casino. Any casino that you walk into, there's going to be background music, and there's going to be 100 other cabinets that are all mastered to 0. And there's going to be people drunk and laughing with their friends, and there's going to be people walking around offering you free drinks and stuff. So there's a lot of competition for attention, and there's a lot of, slot machines don't all sound the same, but as a genre, we are very happy. Everything is very positive and very upbeat. There's nobody dies, there's no blood, there's no gore. So how do I communicate a message to a player who is probably distracted in several ways and perhaps altered without being annoying? Because if you're there for a long time pushing that button, you're going to hear these sounds over and over and over again. So, the first commandment of sound is don't be annoying. And then the short answer to your question is how to communicate the message that I want to communicate without being annoying and I'm also standing out from the other slot machines around mine.
Okay, we have a line of questions
Well, I
now.
wanted to know, that was really dope.
That was excellent. I'm just moving it along.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is why she produces it, I know. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'm a voice actor, and I would love to know what the best way is to connect with you guys, to plug in so we can work together in the future.
Us
Yeah.
specifically, or like in general?
Well, since you're here, I would say you guys specifically. I'm local to the area, and that would be a great partnering.
I will say one of the best things you could do as a voice actor is to get in with voice acting studios and agents, because that's basically who we go through when we're hiring actors or WB Games, Ogatron, or not WB Game, WB Games, WB Voice Studio, Ogatron, voice studios and agents is kind of our first call. And so going through just getting one person, and if it's a small game, maybe we'll do that, but for the most part, we're casting a whole game, so we need a lot of voices at one time and hear a bunch of things. But for sure, it's not just voice actors, but musicians, sound designers. It is a networking business. We need to know people and be friendly and not annoying, kind of like.
Excuse me?
No, it's
The sounds, not the first sound.
Well, we'd be glad to.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely chat. There's a couple voice actors that we know around the area.
Bob Carter, have you been to his booth?
Bob and I are friends, yeah.
A question for you, do you have a demo reel?
I have several demos.
Okay, great. Anyone here that is wanting to get into voice acting, make sure you have a demo reel that is easy to access and ideally under 2 minutes because people's attention span is Very, 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 very.
And for games,
Yeah, and for games. Yeah.
not narration.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
understood. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hello.
Ah.
What can a technical artist do to make the lives of sound engineers easier?
Look at your jam. Oh my god. Jam. Send us your
I
resume.
mean, you already know that we exist, so I mean, you're ahead of the game already.
Thank you.
Man.
Play test with audio on would be stellar. Talk to the audio programmers if there is one. Oh my god.
If you make a change, tell your audio people.
Yeah.
Be nice.
If there are any audio producers, be like really tight with them. Just maybe even like weekly meetings. Like I have a bunch of weekly meetings with various different disciplines every week, and even if there's like nothing going on, we'll just kind of like still meet up and like chat about the game, and then usually that can like, you know, go down a rabbit hole of like, oh wait, well, since we're here, why don't we talk about this like new feature thing? Like just communication is really great.
100%. Yeah, like, because you're changing, like, if you change an animation, like, oh, the footsteps are now off. So just knowing, like, what you change, and that's kind of the producer's job. But you being at the forefront, it's like, oh, yeah, I made these 10 changes to this animation set. Let audio know, because it definitely affects them.
And sometimes it's easier to go straight to the source and let the sound designer know, because oftentimes things will get lost
Yes.
up the chain. So
Yeah,
Maybe
depending on how like large a project is, it's like, yeah.
or someone's like, oh, that's not important, or as
Yeah.
urgent, and it's like, oh, everyone knows.
It's really just be best buddies.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, all the disciplines should be closer. It seems like it's very
Very
close.
siloed.
And it kind of has to because of dependencies.
No, it does.
But, you know, go to lunch with sound guys.
Yeah.
And some people, sorry, I cut it right after I said it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
My question was regarding music composition. So I actually started getting into making music for video games during the summer, and as a result, I got a few tracks under my name. But my question is about composition. So what would be the best way to actually learn music composition? Is it strictly studying music theory, or is it just go experiment and just make tracks as much as you can?
If I were to teach a course on music composition, it would be a year of just listening to music and transcribing music. So you're listening to whatever you feel is what you like, and then just say, okay, can I figure out the bass part? Can I figure out the chords? Can I figure out the melody? What's the rhythm? All that kind of stuff. If you know how to write it down, and then try to reproduce it. Because that's then teaching you to hear what's inside your head, and then being able to reproduce it. So you're learning that skill of like, oh, I heard the song, I could pick out the bass line, and now that pattern's in your head, and you're just kind of ingraining yourself into learning those patterns, and your brain will soon like recognize, oh, I heard 1 4 5 1 now, and I can, like, that's easy for me to do. Then you start associating that with the emotions of whatever the story you're trying to tell, and you have this big vocabulary thing that you're just building up of these sounds and patterns that then you can use for your music composition. So that's, I would maybe do that for 4 years, like just transcribe music. And because I mean, that's basically you're writing other people's music, but then you're then incorporating what you've learned from that into your own music.
If I were teaching a class, I'm not a very good theory-based person, so Chris is smarter going in that route. But I would also emphasize storytelling and think about your instruments as different voices. Your track should be a story. What story are you trying to tell? What is the root emotion of this? How should I feel? And then find a voice from that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is kind of related to mixing. So kind of as games get larger, I'm sure the number of sound effects and requirements increase. So do you have any advice on how you mix compositions or audio when you can't really predict what groups of sound effects you might experience in the game?
Yeah, I would say baseline, there's definitely going to have to be a hierarchy of anything. So like, let's say explosions. you know, really big. Oh wait, hold on, like a character's talking, that goes above it. Hold on, our character is talking, that goes above it. Like just kind of mapping out in your mind, like every day to day, like what is the thing that matters most? Usually number 1, dialogue. Number 2, big sound effects.
Yeah,
And then everything else just kind of becomes stylistic choice.
Messaging, clear.
Yeah, just any kind of messaging.
It depends on the genre of the game too. Like the way a fighter might be mixed would be different than a narrative RPG versus a brawler or a mobile title. So
I might be wrong about this, but the way I do it is I've calibrated speakers, so my room's somewhat calibrated to where I don't have to raise the volume. And then once they're calibrated, I check the voice, and the voice should sound natural at the calibrated speaker. So if I'm yelling, it should sound just exactly the same as if I'm in the room with you. And then everything can go around that, because that would give you all the headroom for explosions and then like ambiances, but as long as you have a voice to where it sounds natural, I think that's a good starting point. I was taught that years ago. I don't know if that's even a thing, but that's...
No, I like that. I'm gonna whenever I go home.
It was weird because
I
I
want to do that.
went to like Company 3 in time to do some voiceover work, and they kept playing the actor and then playing it back, and I kept thinking that it was, I couldn't tell the difference between the playback and him speaking. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like seems like a nice baseline. So, yeah.
our head honcho at Team Audio, Ariel, Ariel always says to find the anchor of your game, and then you mix around, similar to what Eric is talking about.
Yeah, anything, so like you said with like genre, like let's say it's an exploration game, like really like kind of quiet, you're like, well, ambiances can be, I don't know where they are, like choose something first, like maybe footsteps, and maybe that's like really small, but like at least you know like the footsteps should sound like this, and then we'll go to like something else later, and just, and same thing with like the anchor, just knowing that like, here's my like reference point, I need something to sound huge. Do I have enough to have like to keep going bigger, and then like I wanted to get quiet, and then just finding like the right place in between all of those.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great question.
Hi, my name's Nick. I had a ham and cheese croissant for breakfast.
Was it toasted?
It was.
Ah.
I'd like to jump in a time machine for my question. How do you think game audio is going to be similar and different in 10 years?
We're all gonna be out of work.
I think we're going to have, we're going to start seeing studios promoting organic as in human-made things versus, studios that are incorporating a lot of AI. I think.
Yeah, I think the tech is gonna be pretty wild. I mean, even just in the last 10 years, like the leaps and bounds of the audio realism that we've achieved is only gonna keep growing. Doing games is gonna be even more complicated.
Maybe mixing will be easier if AI can do that.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah, but then you won't be able to, like, there's always going to be a human element to it. Because I can tell the AI to, like, mix the game, or I can be like, you know what, during this moment, just cut everything out. 10 years, I don't know, there's going to be a lot of, like, really, really, really great sounding sample libraries. We're only going to keep progressing in that.
Do you think we'll be unionized?
Ooh, no.
You don't think so?
I have no idea.
Huh.
I haven't gone to any meetings.
I don't know. I've been wrong about everything.
How was
in
it
my
different
life.
10 years ago as opposed to today?
I mean, I think middleware will keep progressing to the point where maybe we can work in middleware exclusively, rather than working in a DAW and then sending things to middleware, so eliminate a step there. Because they do seem to be, even though I don't use middleware, they do seem to be adding so much functionality that is so creative and interesting that I think perhaps we will be able to generate and create the things that we need in the middleware. But I'm with Eric on the AI thing, that there's always going to be a human element, simply to tell it to go. You know, that I don't think that, you know, I click on the little button on Ozone just like everybody else, just to see what it's going to do, and it's never right. You know, I love you, but no, I don't need 12K up that high. Thank you very much. There's always, you know, it's garbage in, garbage out. And I'm not prepared to rely upon somebody who's not me or not someone who is not trained to make my stuff for me. And throughout the last 10 years and more, all of the changes that we've seen, you know, moving from cassette to CD was supposed to be Armageddon for music. And I'm old. And it wasn't. And, you know, it was a big deal when digital audio tape came out. Oh my God, it was just, the industry was just so terrified. And we see those things over and over and over again, and yet here we still are. And so I think the challenge is to adapt and to be adaptable as these new technologies come out, because we do have fantastic sounding VIs, and I write completely in the box except for tambourine and shaker eggs, and but that hasn't meant the death of orchestras, you know. Oh, and fiddle, I hire a fiddle player. Yeah, that's my very long-winded answer of, well, it'll be fine. We're not going to be all out of work in 10 years.
We'll also have more diversity, like actual diversity in the talent pool.
I hope so.
I agree
I get
with
sad
Laura.
about it, sorry. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, I agree with that. That was an excellent answer. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Casey Hall. My question, I wanted to phrase more around kind of jumping into the industry in a way. When you guys are collecting teams to work with you, or people to work with you, possibly hiring managers, I'm curious about the weight of degrees and certifications.
Oh man, go for it.
Oh, okay, I'm glad. Yeah, so that's the
All right, okay, go on. I don't know what I was going to say.
Hear me out. Controversial thought. I don't think you need to have a degree in music or audio or anything like that. I actually have a completely different trade, beside the point. Because really what we're looking for is potential, not your immediate talent as a newcomer into the industry. And also a lot of times we see students that come from gaming schools have very similar demo reels. You've seen one, applicant number 54 might be very similar. So really what we want to see is your potential, your ability to work with other teams, and that might be like working on game jams, working on your own thing. Showing initiative is really what can help you get in the door. Showing initiative, showing your potential, and really doing things on your own, because a lot of students that I've mentored, like I have to remind them, just because you have a degree in this doesn't guarantee you a job.